At 10 o'clock on July 28th, I released my first commercial game. By the end of the day, 84 people had bought it. The first review was positive, and instead of celebrating, I went to bed wondering what was going to break next.
A very healthy and normal response to success.
This is what launch day actually looked like. Launch morning began at home, with one small complication. My main computer was being completely reset after becoming unusable. So while Windows rebuilt itself beside me, I was working from my laptop, checking that every last-minute update had been completed, uploaded, and tested. The public announcement had already been prepared and scheduled for exactly 10 o'clock. But Steam does not automatically release the game for you. When the clock reached 10, I still had to enter Steamworks and press the button that made the game public.
Years of work reduced to one button. No pressure.
I felt physically sick. One click would put the game in front of real customers, people who could buy it, refund it, review it, criticize it, or discover something I had somehow missed. And I knew they would discover something. I just did not know what. I clicked release, and for a brief moment, nothing seemed to happen. There was a small delay while Steam processed it, which was just long enough to make me wonder whether I had done something wrong. Then the store page appeared. The game had a release date. It had a purchase button. Family Office Simulator was officially for sale. So I refreshed the page. Then I refreshed it again. Apparently, one refresh was not emotionally sufficient. The scheduled announcement and the public store page landed close enough together that nobody noticed the delay. From the outside, it probably looked organized. From my side of the screen, I was staring at a laptop beside a half-rebuilt computer, repeatedly confirming that the game had not somehow vanished. Once the game was live, I kept bouncing between launch tasks and the sales dashboard. 0 sales. Refresh. Still 0. Handle another task. Refresh again. I do not remember the exact minute the first purchase appeared. It was probably within the first half hour. But I remember exactly what I thought. Holy shit. Someone actually bought my dream. That person did not know how many nights had gone into the game. They did not know about the rewrites, the bugs, the store review, the launch preparation, or the computer rebuilding itself 10 feet away. They just saw a game that interested them and paid money for it. That first sale made the whole thing real. Once the first handful of sales came in, I sent a screenshot to my wife, the chairwoman. Her response was simple. Wow, good for you. It was supportive, a little surprised, and significantly calmer than the internal situation on my side. She was the only person I told about the numbers that day. I was not broadcasting
Someone had to maintain institutional stability.
the sales or sending screenshots to everyone I knew. I was still trying to determine whether the whole thing was actually working. A few hours after launch, real life contributed another important milestone. My truck needed an oil change, so I packed the laptop and took launch operations with me. While the truck was being serviced, I refreshed sales, read Steam posts, and triaged reported issues from the waiting room. I was not making major code changes there. I was trying to understand what players were experiencing, what needed immediate attention, and what could safely wait. At the same time, I was wondering whether the reset at home had actually saved my main computer. It was not the cinematic founder experience. It was a laptop,
The game had launched. The truck had a maintenance schedule. Only one came with a waiting room coffee machine.
phone, an oil change, and a rapidly growing list of things to investigate. At 3:22 that afternoon, the first meaningful public feedback appeared, and it was not purely negative. The player had already spent more than 2 hours with the game and said it was going well. That alone was surreal. Someone was not merely buying the game, they were playing it. But inside the positive comment were 2 problems. They did not understand what story mode meant, and they could not figure out how to change the asking rent while a unit was vacant. The reason they could not find that control was simple. It did not exist. Technically, the game was functioning as designed. A new tenant's rent was based automatically on the property's current market rent. But the vacancy message made it sound like the player could change the rent manually. So technically, it was a missing feature and a misleading message. Practically, the player expected to do something reasonable, and the game would not let them. Once customers are involved, that distinction becomes very small. I responded about 45 minutes later. I explained the difference between story mode and standard mode. I confirmed that the player was not overlooking the vacant unit rent control. I acknowledged that the existing message was misleading, and I logged the feature for a future update. The player responded again. They said they were digging the game and gave it 4 thumbs up. That exchange taught me something immediately. Players did not expect perfection from an early access game, but they did expect honesty, clarity, and evidence that someone was listening. The cycle had begun. A player found friction. I responded, they felt hurt, and I gained a new item on the development list. Later that same day, the same player posted the first Steam review. Recommended. They said the game delivered what the store page promised. They called it surprisingly addictive. They said the developer seemed active and responsive. They also said the price felt a little high for early access, that there were bugs, and that the game lacked a real tutorial. It was not empty praise. It was honest, and the overall verdict was still positive. When I saw the blue recommended rating, I did not cheer. I went numb. It was disbelief, exhaustion, and fear all at once. I had spent so long worrying that nobody would buy the game that I had not prepared for someone to publicly say it was worth buying. I did not reply to the review. I just stared at it. And instead of relieving the pressure, it increased it. Someone had publicly trusted me to keep improving the game. Now I felt responsible for proving that trust was not misplaced. By the end of launch day, 84 copies had sold. Gross Steam revenue was $1,566 before Steam's share, taxes, refunds, and everything else that comes afterward. I did not have a day one sales target. There was no polished forecast telling me what success was supposed to look like. I only knew that 84 sales was more than I had ever allowed myself to dream would happen.
More than forecast?
Even while riding that high, I noticed the returns.
A flexible strategy.
2 people had already decided the game was not for them. It did not ruin the day, but I wondered why. What had they expected? What had disappointed them? What had they seen that I had not? That is the strange thing about releasing a game. 84 people can say yes, and part of your brain will still concentrate on the 2 who said no. I worked until about 9 that night. Then I finally closed the laptop, but I did not stop working. I could not sleep, so I kept checking the sales dashboard, reading player feedback, replying where appropriate, and planning fixes from my phone. I knew I was heading into 3 straight days of work away from my normal setup, so I was trying to push forward anything I could before morning. The main computer's reset had finished late that night, but it would not become a fully rebuilt development machine until I returned home several days later. For launch and the immediate aftermath, the laptop was the command center. I did not celebrate. I did not believe there was anything to celebrate yet. The work was not done.
So how did you celebrate?
When I finally put the phone down, I was worried about everything at once.
Of course you didn't.
Bad reviews, more bugs, sales disappearing, and disappointing the people who had taken a chance on the game. I should have felt proud. Instead, I went to bed anxious. And looking back, I still think continuing the work was the right call. Launching the game was not the finish line. It was the moment the responsibility became real. 48 hours later, Launch Update 1 was live. It fixed progression issues, property management problems, brokerage errors, accounting problems, and tenant lifecycle bugs players had already uncovered.
The launch was over. The launch had begun.
And before I could feel relieved, more reports started coming in. This is Portfolio Playthrough, and this was launch day.